I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 79 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Natural Resources. Today we meet to resume our study of Canada's clean energy plans in the context of the North American energy transformation. We will then proceed to sit in camera to discuss committee business. Since today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format, I would like to make a few comments for the benefit of members and witnesses. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you are not speaking. Interpretation for those on Zoom, you have a choice at the bottom of your screen of either Floor, English, or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. Additionally, screenshots or taking photos of your screen is not permitted. In accordance with our routine motion, I'm informing the committee that all remote participants have completed the required connection tests in advance of the meeting. I'll be using two cards, 30-second warning in yellow, time's up in red. I would now like to welcome the witnesses who are with us this afternoon. From Carbon Connect International, Inc., Al Duer, partner and co-founder. Also, Jackson Hegland, partner and co-founder by video conference. From Cégep des Jonquières, Martin Bourbonnais, from Centre-Terre, chair by video conference. Thank you for taking the time to appear today. Each witness has up to 5 minutes for an opening statement. We will now begin with Mr. Hegland. Welcome to the committee. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Thank you for this opportunity. Today, we'd like to focus on investment into our economy and enabling action now. Canada's Clean Energy Plan needs to ensure the following: no carbon leakage, no financial leakage, no jobs leakage. As it stands, the IRA threatens each of these. To protect our economy, our jobs, and our leadership position on climate action, we need certainty and stability in our regulatory system and financing mechanisms that ensure both public and private sector capital is accessible and efficiently allocated. Our clean energy plan should encompass the tools that create an imminent need for other jurisdictions to meet our performance standards, given our history with economy-wide carbon pricing, active carbon markets across the country, and multiple successful incentive programs. However, we need to streamline these financing mechanisms to incent further action. It is clear we need to do more because the scale and scope of our investments are not sufficient to keep pace with the IRA. Canada's clean energy plan can create domestic jobs by greening our value chain through distributed technologies and by providing large infrastructure projects with the certainty they require to operate over the long term. Subsequently, we need to be proud of our products like liquefied natural gas and our homegrown technologies like methane mitigation from oil and gas, as each contributes to a cleaner global energy economy. There's no doubt that we are seeing significant innovations in Canada, large and small. Innovation in transportation, such as hydrogen and electrification, in agriculture, such as methane reduction through cattle feed additives, in the built environment, heat pumps, in oil and gas, methane emission reduction technologies, and in partnerships with Indigenous nations. We're seeing this permeate now into other growth sectors like lithium, CCUS, biofuels, geothermal, and let's not forget about the unicorn success story in direct air capture with the recent acquisition of carbon engineering out of British Columbia to US-based Oxy Petroleum, a clear signal that the IRA is driving massive investment into clean energy solutions. So we need a suite of new financial incentives that efficiently deploy capital to our high-emitting sectors, and we must not halt programs or initiatives like our functioning offset system that generate substantial emissions reductions. And we have the data to prove it. Please welcome my business partner, Mr. Al Duer, to provide further comments.
On one example of how Alberta's leadership in carbon pricing and offsets has created a vehicle for substantial private sector financing for and investment in emission reduction technology, innovation, and implementation. 15 years ago, Alberta established the first functioning carbon markets in North America. Since inception, the challenge has been to strike a balance between regulatory oversight and flexibility, ensuring stability to incent technology innovation and attract financing for implementation. To illustrate, in areas where line power is not available in the industry, the oil and gas industry has deployed natural gas-powered pneumatic controllers and injection pumps, resulting in one of the largest vent gas contributors to methane emissions. In Alberta, offset protocols were developed to reduce or eliminate these emissions. Annual offsets created by pneumatic pump conversions went from almost zero in 2017 to over 2 million tons of CO2 in 2021. Pneumatic replacements in 2021 alone delivered twice the annual carbon emission reductions achieved in a major Canadian carbon capture and storage facility. Privately funded offsets from pneumatic conversions in 2021 represented over 30% of reported upstream vent gas emissions. But carbon markets are fragile, and as Jackson noted, risk reduction and legislative certainty is critical to attract private capital to finance our climate ambitions. Unfortunately, proposed revisions to the 2018 federal methane regulations will create significant unintended consequences. Changes requiring all pumps and controllers on oil and gas facilities to be non-emitting may sound like a good thing, but it effectively eliminates the potential for Alberta's highly robust and thriving carbon offset market to attract private capital to fund emission reduction for pneumatic conversions. This will cause hundreds of millions in private capital to dry up and send a chilling signal through arguably the most robust carbon market in the world. As international voluntary carbon markets are being formed, Canadian leadership is essential to a world community crying for successful models to emulate. Canada needs to work within the provinces. Canada can be a leader to ensure that regulatory reform add and not inhibit functioning carbon markets across Canada, and then take that Canadian experience, the Canadian success, to the world. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hegland and Mr. Doer, for your opening remarks. We'll now go to Cégep de Jonquière, Monsieur Martin Bourbonnais. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all the members of the committee for inviting me to share our thought process on this very interesting field of energy. First off, the Cégep de Longueuil is a teaching institution that welcomes 3,000 students. It's in the Lac-Saint-Jean area in the province of Quebec. We have the opportunity in that we have various fields of study, physics, engineering, and we do applied work with the various companies. What I'm about to, of course, give you in terms of a presentation is not going to cover everything that is important, but we did focus on 12 major requirements to ensure a viable energy transition for Canada. The first task that we think is important in the context of energy transition is to reduce waste, focus on energy sobriety, and make good use of electricity. In Quebec, 77 kilowatts hour, that gives you an idea of how much that represents. That's 10 plants, and that amount could be recovered, 77 terawatts, rather. Each region has its own real optimal energy mix. Each region, each city is different, so there is no one-size-fits-all, especially not in very large regions. Number three, it's really quite important to ensure that people's energy sovereignty is maintained. Natural resources belong to the people and should be managed by agencies such as what exists in Manitoba and in Quebec. We also think that number 4 and 5, we need to strengthen the use of stabilizing energies and include intermittent renewable energies. There's, of course, the issue of supply and demand in these networks. Intermittent, such as solar and wind energy, has to be managed in an intelligent way. We can integrate that highly there are a number of technical aspects to it, however. Number 6, making good use of dormant thermal batteries. There's the issue of hydroelectric and other forms of batteries. You can use the reservoir of water in the same way as you would use a thermal battery. So we often talk about electric batteries, but we believe that thermal batteries seem to be left by the wayside, but actually they exist. They're actually in a dormant state and are just waiting to be used. We believe in, there are 300 communities in Canada, many forest camps that have to deal with diesel still today, given the salaries that involves. This is the highest expenditure for the province. We are looking at the state of energy in these areas to try to help people evolve in this field. Number 8, automation and digitization. That's just obvious, of course. In Canada, we really are not at the level we should be at in terms of automation, and even further off course in terms of digitization. Point number 9, colleagues have mentioned the importance of legislative action. There are many things that can be done in that respect. Number 10, training a skilled workforce. I taught in a cégep, and that's an issue that really matters to me. Renewable energy is going to be a big source of employment in the next 10 years. In 2020, there were 10 million people working in photovoltaic and other forms of energy, bioenergy. 80% of jobs were in that field. In the CEGEP, we have technical training. We have customized training for companies as well. We work with various provincial groups like Les Squads Énergie that allow us to really work on some projects. Number 11 then. Centers such as ours need support, financial support, to help various businesses really meet the requirements at this point. There is CAT funding that could be available, and we have to look at trying to prevent any harm in this area. Number 12, make the transition with and for the people. We're very focused on the social aspect, and more so than the technical aspect, and this is a matter that concerns everyone.
Merci.
Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Bourbonnais.
Thank you, Mr. Bourbonnais.
Statement. We'll now go to our first round of questions. We will begin our first round with Mr. Earl Dreeshen from the Conservative Party of Canada for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But before I start, is there a guarantee that we will be going through the full round? We only have 20 minutes left before the traditional 5:30. Could you explain that before I get started?
Well, I'm hoping we can get one full round of questions up until we've decided to go into committee business at 5:30 or 5:32, 24 minutes. That puts us at 5:36.
So if I understand, it's not one full round. It'll be one person from each party is what you were saying, not one full round.
That's the first round.
Not an hour's worth of questions.
I'm hoping we can do one from each party for 6 minutes.
Under those circumstances, Mr. Chair, I will give my time to my colleague, Ms. Stubbs.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Earl. Thank you to all the witnesses for being here, and I certainly do encourage all of you to submit comprehensive written submissions to this committee, which will be included in the final report. So to begin, Chair, I would like to give verbal notice of the following motion. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee undertake a study of the Supreme Court of Canada's ruling that Bill C-69, an act to enact the Impact Assessment Act and the Canadian Energy Regulator Act, to amend the Navigation Protection Act, and to make consequential amendments to other acts, House is unconstitutional immediately following the completion of the clause-by-clause review of Bill C-49, an act to amend the Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador Atlantic Accord Implementation Act and the Canada-Nova Scotia Offshore Petroleum Resources Accord Implementation Act, and to make consequential amendments to other acts for the purposes of this study. The committee, A, hold at least 5 meetings, B, invite the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources and the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change to appear for 1 hour each, C, report its findings and recommendations to the House, and D, pursuant to Standing Order 109, request that the government table a comprehensive response to the report. Now, Chair, I would like to move the following motion that I gave notice of on October. I know you're looking at the other side, but I saw these guys raise the hand because I have very good peripheral vision. Women will know how well we can multitask and see while we're talking. So now, Chair, I would like to move the following motion I gave notice of on October 16th, and you were right about the timing then, and so now, of course, it's all in order now. So we urge the committee recognize that Bill C-69, an act to enact the Impact Assessment Act and the Canadian Energy Regulator Act, has been ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of Canada in a 5-2 decision, that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court said that Parliament has to, quote, act within the enduring division of powers framework laid out in the Constitution, and that all provinces and territories called for major changes to Bill C-69 and were ignored by the Liberal government. It is the opinion of the committee that Bill C-69 should be repealed and report this finding to the House in order for the House to vote on the viability of the bill given the Supreme Court's majority ruling. So for our witnesses who have given of their time and expertise to be here today, and for all Canadians, I just want to make it clear why this is so crucial. It is, of course, because the uncertainty and the death by delay and the endless timelines and the abilities and opportunities for there to be political interference at many different stages throughout the assessment has not only driven out billions of dollars in traditional oil and gas development and already killed 300,000 jobs of oil and gas workers in every corner of this country, but of course disproportionately impacting provinces like Alberta, like Saskatchewan, parts of BC, certainly Newfoundland and Labrador. The reason this is important for everybody here and for all Canadians is because C-69 will not own the C-69, which now, even though the NDP and the Liberals ignored Conservatives' cautions at the time, which, I just am here to represent the people of Lakeland, so that's my number one job. But I gotta say, it's a little bit awkward because, of course, I was the Shadow Minister for Natural Resources for the official opposition during all that time, and I did warn on every single aspect that the Supreme Court has now said was unconstitutional. But so did, of course, every provincial premier and every territorial leader by the time it was getting out the back end. So here is the fact. Because of the Liberals and the NDP, a law has been in place for 5 years, for half a decade, that the Supreme Court has now said is unconstitutional. That not only will continue the flood of traditional oil and gas investment and jobs from this country to others as a consequence of years of anti-energy, anti-resource development, anti-private sector policies, but it will also absolutely hamper and prevent the private sector investments, the technology, and the innovation required for more clean energy and green energy and renewable energy development in the future. It will absolutely stop in its track the development in its tracks, and it is stopping in its tracks the development of alternative energies and fuels of the future. That I would note.
J'ai une question de règlement, monsieur.
Point of order. Point of order.
Une question de
We
règlement.
have a
gonna
point of order
continue.
from Monsieur Samard. Monsieur Samard?
Simplement,
Simply this, I'm sorry to our witnesses for this delay, but when I read my colleague's motion, I'm wondering if there might not be some fundamental flaw. You can't declare a bill unconstitutional. You can say so about legislation, but the Supreme Court will not rule on a bill as it is written right now. Perhaps the clerk could tell us whether this is admissible or not. This motion is admissible because based on what I know, a bill cannot be considered as being legislation that is. And, you know, then we're talking about a bill from another parliament, and now we're asking for the Supreme Court's opinion.
This
One
is
second.
debate.
I have, excuse colleagues, I have a point of order from.
I respect the.
I have a point of order from Monsieur Simard, and I have to hear the translation because I'm not I'm not bilingual yet, and so I need to understand the translation. It takes me a moment. When everybody is yelling or trying to make a comment, it's hard for me, and it's hard for the translators as well. So I'm going to go to the clerk on the
Certainly
point
no
of
one is
order.
yelling, Chair.
Well, but it is difficult when you're.
But no one's yelling, so
That's what it seems
let's
to
all
me.
characterize each
So
other accurately.
that's what it seems to me.
Yeah, but
So
I'm not
everybody,
yelling.
I just ask everybody to be calm
do have a
for
loud
moment
talking voice, but I'm not
until we
yelling.
can get a ruling from the clerk on the point of order.
Characterizing a
And
woman
point of
as
order on that
yelling
point of
is sort of as old in the book as hysteria, isn't it?
Point of order.
We
On
have,
that
there's
point of
multiple
order?
points of orders, Charlie, here. You're about fourth on the list, so just hang on.
Yeah, I'm not talking to you. You're not the chair.
Doesn't matter. You don't have the floor, so just wait your
Point
turn.
of order, Chair. Point of order on Mr. Simard's point of order.
Yes, Mr. Angus, if you can just give me 1 second.
Certainly.
yeah.
I will wait.
Thank you.
I also had a point of order on that already, Charlie, and so I think so did Mr. Aldag, so you know, there is a pecking order here, so don't worry about it. Don't shush me.
Mr. Simard, thank you for your point of order, and I think what you've said, that this is a matter for the House to deal with, but since debate has begun on the motion, we will proceed through.
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Angus?
Excuse me, no, there's multiple people
you
that
have
have
the
raised
chair.
points of order
Well,
before
no.
Mr. Angus, so no, he doesn't get to jump the queue.
Hold on a sec. Mr. Angus had his hand up, and I want to give everybody an opportunity here in person and on video conference. Mr. Angus had his hand up,
So did the rest of us.
but he did not. I know, but he did not interrupt on a point of order. He put up his hand. I acknowledged his hand going up, so we'll go to him. And then if you have a point of order, I can acknowledge others as well.
Point of order was on the previous point of order, though.
His point of order is also on the point of order.
Yeah, he raised it after.
So, because his hand was up.
He wanted to speak to the motion on the list. There's a speaking list for the motion.
I
But
don't
you haven't
know
heard
for
from him
sure.
yet.
He didn't say point of order
So-
until
Chair, you haven't
after.
heard from
the rest
him.
of us
Chair,
did.
I have the
So, thank you,
discretion to
Chair.
acknowledge that point of
Chair, you
order,
haven't
and then
heard
I can
from
go
him
to
yet,
you
so
if
how
you
do
have
you
a point
know
of
what
order.
his point is going to be?
Mr. Angus, on the
Thank you,
point of
Chair.
order of Monsieur Simard.
Point of
That's
order,
what I'm
Mr. Chair.
focused on, and I hope I won't be intimidated by the Rat Pack.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Point of order. Point of order.
Mr. Simard raised a very
Point of order.
point, and I won't
Okay.
actually speak to his point.
Point of order.
Because Bill 69
Point of order.
was not.
Point of order.
Mr. Angus, can you just hold for 1 second? Can you just hold for 1
It's
second?
not a bill, it's been in law, so this is what you guys got to get straight.
So, colleagues, I've addressed your point of order. I'm going to hear, I have not heard Mr. Angus's point of order yet because, once again,
I'm raising a point of order on his comments here, Mr. Chair.
You actually raised a point of order prior to him.
To Mr. Simard, first and foremost, before Mr. Angus.
You do not have the floor. You will get the floor.
I have a point of order, though.
Once Mr. Angus's point of order is heard, you can object to his point of order. Okay? That's what I rule. I'm going to go to...
I actually raised the point of order on what Mr. Angus was saying.
Same thing. We have to hear what he said first. He has.
No, first
he's
we
made
have to correct his language.
Look,
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
The absolute first thing we have to do. The first thing we have to do is correct his
Mr. Angus
language.
has the floor.
I have the floor.
Mr. Angus,
Chair, thank you.
I'm going to ask you to on the point of order, so you can be clear. And then if our other colleagues have a point of order on your point of order, you can raise it at a time. So let's give Mr. Angus an opportunity to say what his point of order is, because I still haven't heard. Go ahead, Mr. Angus.
I appreciate that, Chair, and I appreciate your patience in having to deal with this. Mr. Simard raises an important point, and it's about the issue of our role as parliamentarians, not as acting, like I said, is in this partisan rat pack kind of behavior. Mr. Simard said about what it was out of order, but the Supreme Court did not rule that legislation out of order. They raised questions about certain parts of that legislation. Other parts of that legislation are still intact. So this motion is inaccurate and an attempt to sort of just throw everything that was voted by Parliament into question when it's not in question. There's certain elements that the Supreme Court ruled on, but not others. So I agree with Mr. Simard. I think it's a very reasonable position. Mr. Simard and I don't always agree on everything, but he comes to this table as someone who takes the work of Parliament seriously, and the work of Parliament is about legislation. The work of our motions must reflect our larger obligations to the system that we
So, Mr. Angus, we're getting into debate now. So if
I'm
you
not
can just
debating. I'm just wrapping up. I think Mr. Simard's point is important in the light that this motion was written improperly, which doesn't surprise me, but it doesn't, and what it claims to cover, it actually can't cover.
Thank you, Mr. Angus. Now, do you have a point of order on Mr. Angus's point of order?
Yeah, I do have a point of order, and it goes to the conduct, actually, of the member. Using words like the rat pack, him thinking that it's okay to just be all belligerently shh to different members. Previous meeting, he told my colleague here to grow up, a very strong, competent woman here who has also been very accomplished in public policy on natural resources for a very, very long time. And then not to mention that last week, when my colleague here also moved her motion, somebody from that end of the table used an expletive that started with F and rhymed with yuck. So I'll let you figure out what word was uttered. And I know that it was not the member from the bloc because which language it was spoken in, so we can rule him out, so we know where it came from. There's a pattern of conduct that is coming from the member from the NDP that is very unbecoming, both of, I would say, the entire committee, but we got members from other parties who are just enabling this kind of behavior for him. And I think it's extremely ridiculous, given that this is supposed to be the most feminine prime minister ever. We got a party sitting over here who is just doing absolutely nothing to try to prevent this from happening. No, it's about the way that he is conducting himself here, right? He wants this committee to try to be all cordial and whatever, but yet it's his behavior and his tone and his language that he has chosen to use to belittle and berate my colleague over here, and other people are aiding and abetting that. And I've just had it up to here with that, and I would ask you, Mr. Chair, to please make sure that I know we all disagree and we all get a little bit, animated from time to time, but there is still a certain level of respect. And the way that he has treated several members, especially my colleague from Lakeland, is extremely inappropriate, very unprofessional. I'd ask, Mr. Chair, that you would now and in the future do something about it.
So, colleagues, thank you for your point of order. I would ask all colleagues to work in committee with mutual respect, not interrupt each other, not talk over each other, and not use any language that could be harmful to others. So that's a request I'm asking all of you, so we can work together in this committee to accomplish what we're here to accomplish on behalf of Canadians, is work through the studies and the reports and listen to our witnesses that take their time to come. Now, So I'll ask that for everybody. We're not going to get into a debate on who said what, because I did not hear any of those comments specifically from one member to another. You've raised your point of order today. Thank you for your point of order. Mr. Falk, you had a point of order on the point of order.
I did. Similar to the comments from Mr. Patzer, Charlie has gone out of his way to be rude and antagonistic in this committee. He's been name-calling again this committee. He's been antagonizing.
We're getting into debate.
No, it's a point of
specifically
order.
on the point of order.
My point of order, Mr. Chair, is that you're not calling out this unruly behavior. When he can berate my colleague, Ms. Stubbs, and when he can tell someone else to shush, and ask Ms. Stubbs to grow up, that is very demeaning type of behavior. And you as a chair, sir, need to call out that behavior. And if you're unwilling or incapable of doing that, you should just tell us. I don't have the ability to recognize those things, or I don't have the ability to make tough decisions. Tell us that. As far as this
So now we're getting into debate. So on the point of order.
No, the point of order is that you need to address
Okay.
the behavior coming from Charlie Angus.
Okay, so I will address the behavior of many members on this committee who have become disruptive, and I have not heard any member call any other member anything that you've suggested. If we do hear that as a committee member and we think it's out of order, then we will. I have not. I'm trying to chair a committee and listen to our witnesses, okay? So that's what I'm trying to do as a committee chair, to allow all of you to have an opportunity to participate. Now we will go to Monsieur Simard. Monsieur Simard, you had a point of order.
So I was saying earlier that I wonder if this motion is even in order, because in this case we're talking about a bill, and also remember that this bill, it falls under the Department of the Environment, so I don't see how the Natural Resources Committee would be in a position to say that a bill that has to do with the environment from the department should be repealed and that should be sent to the House. If anyone is supposed to deal with this, even if to my mind that is out of order, given the fact that we're talking about a Supreme Court decision that applies to a law and an act and not a bill, if anyone is to do this, it would be the Environment Committee, because this bill, C-69, falls under the Environment Department's mandate. So I'll stop with that. Perhaps it would be a good idea to move on to something else. I might advise my colleagues from the Conservative Party to perhaps rewrite this motion, or send it to another committee. And respect involves everyone. And really, we should have respect for the chair. If we were all listening to the chair without noise, then we would have a much more interesting committee than we would have had in the last few weeks. I don't think it's a great example to show to the witnesses that are here.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. I'm going to go to Mr. Angus on the point of order. And then we are running at the end of our time for this first hour. So, Mr. Angus.
Well, thank you, Chair. And I just want to say that I respect the Chair, and I always abide by the Chair's rulings. That's why when the Chair speaks, I stop and I listen. So I appreciate your rulings here. I'm not going to get involved in this back and forth about who said what, because I don't even know half the time what's being said about me, except that I intervened to support Mr. Simard, who I thought had a very reasonable position, and I think it is our role as parliamentarians. I'll continue to do that work. So my point of order is, should we not actually now at 5:30, since the Conservatives did not want to let the witnesses speak, since they did not allow them to be questioned by other opposition members, that we now go in camera and we can then move forward. So I vote to adjourn this part of the meeting, and we can go in camera and actually start planning what we need to do, because we're not.
But Chair, I have the floor, correct?
With our witnesses, so I would say I vote to adjourn.
Mr. Angus, in a point of order, we can't move a motion. But what I am going to ask quickly is on the point of order. Ms. Stubbs is on the point of order. And then Ms. Patzer, very quick on the point of order. But I'm going to ask, before I go to you, I think this might help with your point of order. I'm going to ask the clerk just to provide some information to committee members, because it might clarify and answer your point of order. And if your point of order is still there on the point of order, I want the clerk to be able to comment to Monsieur Smart's and Monsieur Angus's comments regarding.
Great. I just would like to clarify.
Well, I want the clerk first. Because,
no, I need to clarify to you because, of course, I didn't move a point of order. I have the floor because I moved a motion.
Yes, but we had a point of order.
But I can also, given that I've been responsible for the official opposition on the natural resources file, you know this well, George, because people in Alberta are aware of me and around the country.
Okay, Ms. Stubbs, I'm gonna go to the clerk first.
I can actually answer. I can answer Monsieur Simard.
I'm going to go to the clerk first.
Like on the relevance.
I'm going to go to the clerk. You're not the clerk. The clerk will answer, and then we will proceed.
So
that's what we're doing.
Okay, so I will listen while a man explains a thing to me that I can
so
also
if we could have your mic off, please,
myself.
so the clerk may respond.
Sure.
Mr. Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion calls for the committee to report to the House. It is true that Bill C-69 was already adopted in the 42nd legislature, so it's not before the House right now, which means that if someone tried to concur the report in the House would likely not be able to act on the content of the report. So at that point, the Speaker might rule that motion to concur in the report out of order. Whether or not, so there could be a procedural issue in the House, but it would be up to the Speaker to rule at that point.
Colleagues, I think that's pretty clear. We are out of time for our first hour. I am going to suspend the meeting so we can move into camera.
No, I have the floor, Chair. I have the floor. I have the floor. That was wonderful input from the clerk, but I have the floor. And I'm not yelling in case, like, men want to characterize me as
Colleagues, are we ready to move into camera?
Yes, we're ready.
Spence?
We have the floor, Chair.
I have the floor.
No, you don't.
I've made that decision, so we're going to move into camera. Suspend.
Mr. Chair, no.
We challenge the chair.